Welcome to the pod key summary of Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon has one of the most unusual histories in superhero comics because she was built from the start to work across media and then kept evolving every time the culture around her changed. Her story runs from 1960s Batgirl on TV to Oracle becoming one of DC's smartest reinventions, to a long argument about disability feminism and what counts as power in a superhero story. And through all of that, she stayed commercially important and strangely adaptable, even when the people running these franchises seemed determined to make things complicated. Barbara Gordon didn't just happen to appear in comics and later get adapted. She was created that way on purpose. Batman TV producer William Dozier asked DC for a new female counterpart to Batman, who could debut in the comics and then show up on the 1960 series almost immediately after. So Barbara first appeared in Detective Comics number 359 in January 1967, and then Yvonne Craig played her on television that September. That origin matters because it helps explain why Barbara felt different from earlier characters like Batwoman and the original Batgirl. She wasn't framed mainly as a romantic accessory. She was an educated career woman, a capable crime fighter, and somebody who could actually meet Batman on an intellectual level. Audiences responded to that version fast enough that she became a recurring character, then a lead in Batman Family, and eventually a regular backup feature in Detective Comics. Then comes the turning point. People still argue about the Killing Joke in 1988, where the Joker shoots Barbara. What could have been the end of the character turned into one of the most important reinventions in DC history. In Suicide Squad number 23 in 1989, Barbara reappeared as Oracle, an information broker who fought crime through intelligence, hacking, computer expertise, and basically terrifying levels of coordination. Instead of trying to make her a diminished Batgirl, writers John Ostrander and Kim Yale built an entirely new center of gravity for her, so she wouldn't just vanish after being paralyzed. As Oracle, she became Batman's intellectual equal, ran huge information networks, and directed field operatives like Black Canary and Huntress. That role became central to Birds of Prey, and it changed the definition of superhero power a little bit. Barbara wasn't primarily winning through punches or acrobatics anymore. She was winning through knowledge, logistics, memory, surveillance, and the ability to see the whole board before anyone else did. Oracle also carried a bigger symbolic weight because Barbara's civilian background already made information part of who she was. She had been written as a librarian and library science scholar, so the jump into becoming this information goddess version of herself didn't feel random. She became a rare mainstream superhero figure who made librarianship, hacking, and information literacy feel central rather than decorative. And ethically, she wasn't just Batman with better Wi-Fi. As Oracle, Barbara could be more willing than Batman to use illegally obtained intel, psychological pressure, even lethal force, if she believed that was what would save lives. That created recurring friction with allies like Black Canary and Huntress, because Barbara's version of heroism could be very practical, very strategic, and sometimes pretty ruthless. This is where the biggest argument around Barbara Gordon really lives. For a lot of readers, Oracle became an essential disabled icon, precisely because her wheelchair was not treated as the end of her relevance. She was powerful, central, complicated, and indispensable, which is not exactly a crowded category in superhero comics. So when the New 52 restored Barbara's mobility in 2011 through experimental spinal surgery, many people felt that a rare piece of meaningful disability representation had been erased. The counter-argument was that in a DC universe full of magic and super science, leaving her paralyzed forever had started to feel editorially selective in a way that was hard to justify. The relaunch tried to keep the injury's impact in place through post-traumatic stress, hesitation around gunfire, and survivor's guilt, even after her mobility returned. And more recently, especially after Joker War, DC has leaned into a compromise where Barbara can function as both Batgirl and Oracle, shifting between physical action and information command. There's also the feminist critique, and it's hard to separate that from the Killing Joke. One major criticism is that Barbara is shot in her civilian identity, given very little agency in that story, and used mainly to intensify a conflict centered on Batman, Joker, and Commissioner Gordon. That kind of thing later got grouped under Gail Simone's phrase, women in refrigerators, which describes the pattern of female characters being killed, mutilated, or depowered to move male character stories forward. Barbara becomes especially interesting because both of her major identities can be read as empowering, but in different ways. Batgirl represents visible physical independence and direct participation in the classic superhero mode. Oracle represents leadership, technical mastery, and effectiveness outside conventional combat. So the debate isn't just which version is better, it's about what kind of power comics value, and whether disability is being used to limit Barbara or simply becoming one part of a much larger identity. What's striking is that through all of these arguments, Barbara Gordon has remained commercially and culturally durable. The New 52 Batgirl #1 sold an estimated 81,489 copies, stayed in the top 30 monthly comics during its first 6 issues, and its first collected hardcover reached the New York Times bestseller list. And outside comics, she keeps getting reinterpreted. You've got Yvonne Craig's very 1960s, but still pioneering TV Batgirl, Oracle in Birds of Prey versions, where she's Commissioner Gordon in Titans and the Lego Batman movie, and playable or guiding roles in the Arkham and Injustice games. Then there's the almost finished Batgirl movie starring Leslie Grace, a planned $90 million DCEU film that was canceled in August 2022. That cancellation says a lot about how unstable superhero adaptation decisions can be, even for a character who has clearly proved she can connect with audiences in more than one form. Barbara Gordon endures because she's never been just one answer to one question. She's a TV innovation, a comic staple, a disabled icon for many readers, a contested symbol for others, and one of the clearest examples of how superhero identities keep getting rewritten by the times. For one character in a cape and cowl orbit, that's a lot of signal. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.